I'm Lisa, 28 female. I live in a small but cozy apartment in the city, a place I've made my own sanctuary, filled with art prints and overflowing bookshelves. By day, I'm a graphic designer, spending hours manipulating pixels and crafting visual stories for clients, something I've always been passionate about. This story, however, isn't about my work. It's about how my own family used those same digital tools not to create, but to erase. For years, they systematically edited me out of our family's public life, one social media post at a time, until a shocking message revealed their deception was far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. My family has always been obsessed with appearances. Not in a wealthy, keeping up with the Joneses kind of way, but in a more insidious, small-town reputation manner. My mother, Karen, is a high school vice principal, a position where public perception is paramount. My older sister, Jessica, is a real estate agent whose face is plastered on bus benches and for sale signs all over town. Her professional success is directly tied to her image as a happy, successful, family-oriented woman. Then there's me, the quiet one, the artistic one, in a family of loud personalities who valued social climbing and public validation. I was the outlier. I preferred a good book to a loud party, a sketchpad to a social gathering. This difference, I believe, is where it all started. I was never the daughter my mother could brag about in the same way she did about Jessica. Jessica was the captain of the cheerleading squad, I was in the art club. Jessica went to business school, I went to art school. Jessica's life was a series of neat, Instagrammable milestones. Mine was a quieter, more introspective journey. This contrast became the foundation for the slow, creeping erasure that would come to define my relationship with them. It began subtly. A family dinner photo posted by my mom where I was conveniently obscured by a floral centerpiece. A Christmas morning picture on Jessica's feed where my face was mysteriously blurry while everyone else was in sharp focus. At first, I dismissed it. "Oh, it was just a bad angle," my mom would say with a breezy wave of her hand. "You were blinking, honey. It wasn't a good picture of you," Jessica would add, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. I tried to play along. I'd offer to take the photos myself, thinking that if I were behind the camera, I couldn't be left out. But that only cemented my role as the family documentarian, present but never seen. My cousin Mark noticed it first. He was more like me, a software engineer who valued logic over performance. "It's weird," he said one Thanksgiving after my mom posted a group shot where I was perfectly framed out with only my arm visible on the edge. "It's like they're using a template and you're just outside the margins." He was right. It felt deliberate. The cropping was always too perfect, the excuses too flimsy. They weren't just picking the photos where I happened to look away, they were actively choosing photos that allowed them to exclude me or digitally manipulating them to achieve the same effect. As a graphic designer, I knew how easy it was. A few clicks in an app, a slight adjustment of the frame, and I was gone. The pain of it was a dull, constant ache. It wasn't a single, dramatic act of cruelty, but a death by 1,000 cuts. Each cropped photo, each post where my name wasn't tagged, was a small confirmation of what I'd always suspected. In their perfect family narrative, I was an inconvenient character. I didn't fit the brand. My life wasn't as shiny or easily digestible as Jessica's. My job wasn't as publicly respectable as my mother's, so they simply edited me out. My attempts to address it were always met with gaslighting. "Oh, Lisa, you're being so sensitive," my mother would sigh, making it seem like my feelings were the problem, not their actions. "You're reading way too much into this. It's just a photo." Jessica would take a different approach, a saccharine concern that was even more infuriating. "I just want to post the best photos of our family," she'd explain. "And you know you've always been a little camera shy." It was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. They made me feel crazy for noticing, and guilty for feeling hurt. So I began to withdraw. I still went to family events, mostly for the sake of my father who seemed oblivious to the whole thing, but I stopped expecting to be included. I'd watch them pose for pictures, a tight, exclusionary circle, and I'd just stand back. I stopped asking to see the photos. I unfollowed their social media accounts, deciding it was better not to know than to face the constant, petty rejections. I told myself it didn't matter. It was just social media, a fake, curated version of life anyway. I had my friends, my career, my own life. I didn't need their validation. But deep down, it stung. It was a constant reminder that to the two women who were supposed to love me unconditionally, I was an inconvenience, an edit waiting to happen. The digital world was their stage, and they had written me out of the play. I retreated into my own life, building walls around my heart to protect myself from their casual cruelty. For a while, that was enough. I found a fragile peace in my self-imposed exile. I focused on my work, my friendships, and tried to forget the family that was trying so hard to forget me. I thought I had accepted my role as the invisible daughter. I had no idea that their digital games were about to escalate into something far more damaging, something that would force me out of the shadows and into a fight for my own identity. The peace was temporary, a calm before a storm I never saw coming. The process of being erased wasn't immediate. It was a gradual fading, like an old photograph left in the sun. Over the next few years, the editing became more brazen. It was no longer just about convenient cropping or blurry shots. They started using photos from events I had attended, but would meticulously edit me out entirely. As a graphic designer, I could spot the telltale signs: a slightly warped background where my shoulder used to be, a strange clone-stamped pattern on the wallpaper behind where I stood, an unnatural gap between family members. They were getting better at it, or perhaps they just cared less about being caught. The first time I saw a truly manipulated photo, it took my breath away. It was from my cousin Mark's wedding. We had taken a beautiful family portrait on the steps of the church, my mom, my dad, Jessica, and me. A week later, Jessica posted it. Except in her version, I wasn't there. The space where I stood, smiling in a lavender dress, was now occupied by a decorative potted fern that definitely hadn't been there. She had not just cropped me out, she had replaced me with a plant. I confronted her about it over the phone. My voice was shaking. "Jess, the photo from Mark's wedding, you photoshopped me out and put a fern there." There was a pause and then a practiced, airy laugh. "Oh, that? The lighting on your side was just awful, Lisa. You were completely washed out. The photo looked so unbalanced. The fern just worked better for the composition." The casual absurdity of her excuse was staggering. She discussed my removal from a family photo as if she were critiquing a poor design choice, as if I were a clashing color or an off-center logo. I didn't know what to say. Arguing felt pointless. She had her narrative, and in it, a potted plant was more aesthetically pleasing than her own sister. That was the day I truly understood. This wasn't about bad photos or flattering angles. This was a deliberate, calculated campaign to curate a version of our family that didn't include me. My father remained a passive observer. He wasn't active on social media and seemed to exist in a blissful state of ignorance. When I tried to show him the edited photos, he'd just squint at the phone screen and say, "Well, that's a nice picture of your mother and sister." He didn't see the manipulation or the cruelty. He saw what they wanted him to see: a happy, picture-perfect family. His inability to see what was happening right in front of him was almost as painful as their actions. It made me feel completely alone, like I was the only one who could see the rot beneath the pristine surface. My mother was the silent accomplice. She would like and love every one of Jessica's edited posts, often adding a comment like, "Such a beautiful family," or "My wonderful girls," referring, of course, only to Jessica. Her complicity was a quiet endorsement of the erasure. She was the vice principal, after all, and maintaining a flawless public image was her specialty. A daughter who didn't fit the mold was a smudge on that image, and she was happy to let Jessica wipe it clean. The isolation was profound. Family gatherings became exercises in anxiety. I would stand on the periphery, watching as they arranged themselves for photos, instinctively leaving a space where I should have been. It felt like being a ghost at my own family's party. I was there, I was breathing the same air, but for all intents and purposes, I was invisible. My relationships with my extended family grew strained. Aunts and uncles I rarely saw would comment on the photos, "You all look so happy." And I wondered if they even noticed my absence. Did they think I was never there? Did they just not care? The public narrative my mother and sister were crafting was becoming the accepted reality. It was a slow, creeping gaslighting of my entire existence within the family. I started to question my own memories. Was I really at that birthday party? Did I actually go on that family vacation? The digital evidence said no. I poured myself into my work. My design firm was thriving, and I found solace in the control and creativity it offered. In my professional life, I wasn't invisible. I was respected, valued, and sought after for my skills. I built a life for myself entirely separate from my family. I had a wonderful circle of friends who saw me, who celebrated me, and who would never dream of editing me out of a photo. They were my real family. Mark remained my only ally within the bloodline. He saw what was happening and was quietly furious on my behalf. "It's pathological," he told me over coffee one day. "They're building a fantasy world and they can't stand that you don't fit into it." He was the only one who validated my feelings, the only one who made me feel like I wasn't crazy. But even he was hesitant to confront them directly, knowing it would likely cause a massive family feud that would solve nothing. So we just had our quiet alliance, a silent acknowledgement of the truth. For years, this was my reality. I existed in the margins, a footnote in my own family's history. I had learned to live with the quiet pain of it, to find my worth and my happiness elsewhere. I had accepted that I would never be part of their picture-perfect world. Little did I know, they weren't just erasing me from their past, they were about to use my identity to create a fraudulent future. Life had settled into a predictable rhythm of work, friends, and a carefully managed, low-contact relationship with my immediate family. The photo editing incidents continued, but I had built up a thick callus of indifference. It still hurt, but it no longer surprised me. I had come to expect it. My peace, however, was shattered on a Tuesday afternoon by a message from a name I hadn't seen in years: Sharon. Sharon was my mom's childhood best friend, a woman who had been a constant presence in my early life. She was a warm, no-nonsense retired nurse whom I'd always adored. We had lost touch after she moved a few states away to be closer to her grandkids. Her name popping up on my screen was a pleasant surprise, but the message itself sent a jolt of ice through my veins. It read, "Lisa, honey, this is a strange question, but I have to ask." I saw a profile on a dating site that a friend of mine matched with. The profile name is Danielle, but the pictures are all of you. Are you moonlighting as a brunette pharmaceutical rep from Chicago? I stared at the message, my heart hammering against my ribs. I read it again and then a third time, the words blurring together. A dating profile, with my pictures, under a fake name, it made no sense. I typed back a frantic response. "Sharon, what are you talking about? No, of course not. Can you send me the profile?" My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hit the letters. A few minutes later, a screenshot appeared on my screen, and there I was. Or rather, there was a woman who looked exactly like me because she was me. The profile picture was a photo I recognized instantly. It was from a hiking trip I took with friends 2 years ago. I was smiling, wind-blown, and happy, with a backdrop of mountains behind me. It was one of my favorite photos of myself, one I had posted on my own private social media account, accessible only to my close friends. But this version was slightly different. My blonde hair had been expertly edited to a dark brown. It was a good job, seamless enough that someone who didn't know me well might not notice the change. But it was undeniably me. My blood ran cold. I scrolled through the other screenshots Sharon sent. There were 5 photos in total. One of me at a friend's wedding, laughing with a glass of champagne. Another of me sitting in a cafe, reading a book. A third of me on a beach, looking out at the ocean. All of them were photos I had taken and shared privately. And in every single one, my hair was digitally altered to be brown. The profile for Danielle was sparse but specific. Age 32. Profession, pharmaceutical sales. Lives in Chicago. Looking for a serious connection with a man who is established and ready to settle down. It was a complete fabrication, a fictional person built using my face as the foundation. I felt a wave of nausea. Who would do this? Why? My mind raced through possibilities. A random stranger who had somehow hacked my account, an ex-boyfriend trying to play a cruel prank. Nothing seemed to fit. Then a sickening thought began to form, a puzzle piece clicking into place with dreadful certainty. The photo editing. The skill, the precision. The casual way my sister had talked about changing photos to fit her composition. Jessica. It had to be Jessica. But why? What could she possibly gain from creating a fake dating profile using my face? It was a level of deception that went far beyond the petty cruelty of cropping me out of family pictures. This was identity theft. This was malice. O's and deeply bizarre. I immediately called Sharon. Her voice was full of concern. "Lisa, I am so sorry to bring this to you, but I knew I had to," she said. "My friend Margaret was talking to this Danielle for a few weeks. She said the woman was charming, but always had an excuse for why she couldn't video chat or meet in person. She was starting to ask Margaret's brother for money, saying her wallet was stolen on a business trip. That's when Margaret got suspicious and showed me the profile. I recognized you instantly, even with the dark hair." The final piece of the puzzle slammed into place. Catfishing. For money. My sister was using my face to scam people online. The revelation was so monstrous, so far beyond the pale, that I felt a dizzying sense of disbelief. This wasn't just about erasing me anymore. This was about exploiting me. They had graduated from removing my image to stealing it and using it for criminal purposes. The petty family drama had morphed into something dark and dangerous. I thanked Sharon profusely, my voice choked with a mixture of gratitude and horror. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time, the screenshots of Danielle burning on my phone screen, the stranger with my face. The life they had invented for her was everything they seemed to want for me: a more serious profession, an older age, a desperate search for a husband. It was a twisted reflection of their own values, projected onto my stolen image. The years of being edited out, of being made to feel invisible, suddenly snapped into sharp focus. It had all been practice. They had been honing their skills, getting comfortable with manipulating my image, all leading up to this. They didn't just want me out of their pictures, they wanted to control my image entirely, to use it as a puppet for their own bizarre and fraudulent schemes. The dull ache of being excluded transformed into a hot, white-hot rage. They had underestimated me. They thought I was the quiet, sensitive one who would just retreat and cry when they pushed me. They thought I would just accept being invisible. They had no idea who they were dealing with. They had spent years trying to erase me. Now, I was going to make sure they could never forget me. The game had changed, and I was about to write a new set of rules. The rage I felt was a powerful fuel, burning away the years of hurt and passivity. My first instinct was to call Jessica and scream at her, to confront my mother and demand an explanation. But I knew that would be a mistake. They would deny everything, gaslight me, and call me hysterical. They would lock down their accounts, delete the evidence, and I would be left with nothing but screenshots and my word against theirs. No, I couldn't be emotional. I had to be methodical. I had to be a detective. I had to beat them at their own digital game. My first call was to Mark. I sent him the screenshots and a brief explanation. His reply came 2 minutes later. "I'm on my way over. Don't do anything until I get there." When he arrived, his face was grim. He looked at the screenshots on my laptop, his jaw tight with anger. "This is beyond sick, Lisa," he said, shaking his head. "This is a crime." "I know," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "And I need proof. I need undeniable proof that links this back to Jessica." Mark, the software engineer, was in his element. "Okay," he said, cracking his knuckles. "Let's follow the digital breadcrumbs." We started with the dating site. The Danielle profile was still active. Mark explained that tracing the IP address that created the profile would be difficult without a court order, but there might be other clues. We focused on the photos. They were my photos from my private accounts. This meant the perpetrator had to be someone I had once trusted enough to be on my friends list. The list of suspects was small, mainly family. Mark had an idea. "Photo metadata," he said, his eyes lighting up. "Sometimes when you upload a photo, some of the original data gets stripped, but not always. If we can get the original files she uploaded to the site, we might find something." That was a long shot. Our next step was more direct. We needed to see if Danielle existed anywhere else. Was this a one-time scam or a larger operation? We did a reverse image search on all 5 photos. For a tense few minutes, we got nothing. The images were only linked to the dating profile. But then Mark had another thought. They edited your hair, he said. The reverse image search algorithms might be looking for an exact match. Let's try searching for the original photos. I logged into my old, backed-up social media accounts and found the original pictures, the ones with my real blonde hair. We ran a reverse image search on the first one, the hiking photo. The results came back instantly. My heart leaped into my throat. There were dozens of hits, all linking to a series of lifestyle blogs and Pinters. Boards, all featuring the same photos of me, but with the edited brown hair. The posts were about Danielle's journey to finding herself after a tough divorce, or Danielle's tips for solo travel. They had built an entire online persona, a complete digital footprint for this fictional woman, using my stolen life as the source material. But then we found the jackpot. One of the blog posts, a guest feature written by Danielle, linked back to a personal website. The website was a portfolio for a freelance writer. It was professionally designed, but something about the font choice and color scheme felt familiar. I navigated to the About Me page. There was no photo, just a biography of Danielle Miller. The details were a mix of my life and their fantasy. She had a degree in communications, Jessica's major, but a passion for art and design, mine. She worked in Chicago but loved visiting her family in our small hometown. And at the bottom of the page was the crucial mistake. A contact form, and below that, a small, barely visible link to the site's designer. My hand trembled as I clicked it. The link took me to a web design portfolio. And whose name was on it? Jessica S. She hadn't even bothered to hide it that well. She had built the entire digital infrastructure for her scam using her own web design side hustle account, probably to save money or time. It was arrogant. It was sloppy. And it was the proof I needed. Mark took a screenshot, his expression a mix of disgust and triumph. "We got her," he whispered, "but I wanted more. I wanted to know how deep the scam went." Mark, using his technical skills, began digging into the website source code. He found a tracking pixel embedded in the site, the kind used for marketing analytics. It was linked to a specific social media account. With a few clicks, he traced it. "It's a Facebook account," he said, turning the laptop towards me. "The one used to manage the ad campaigns for this Danielle persona." The profile picture was a generic sunset, and the name was innocuous. But when Mark clicked on the friends list, my blood turned to ice. There were only 2 friends listed for this account. One was Jessica. The other was my mother, Karen. That was the moment the betrayal became complete. My mother was in on it. The vice principal, the pillar of the community, was an active participant in her daughter's scheme to defraud people using her other daughter's identity. The likes on the edited photos, the gaslighting, the quiet complicity, it all made a horrifying kind of sense now. She wasn't just endorsing my erasure. She was a co-conspirator in the identity theft. "They were probably splitting the money," I said, the words tasting like poison. Mark nodded grimly. "Looks like it." We spent the rest of the night documenting everything. We saved screenshots, archived web pages, and downloaded the source code. We built a digital dossier of their crimes, a mountain of evidence that was irrefutable. By sunrise, I had a complete timeline of their deception, from the first cropped photo to the intricate catfishing scheme. The initial rage had subsided, replaced by a cold, clear certainty. I knew what I had to do. A simple confrontation wasn't enough. Calling the police felt complicated and messy, and there was no guarantee they'd face real consequences. No, the punishment had to fit the crime. They had built their lives around public perception, around a carefully curated image of perfection. I was going to take that image and shatter it into a million pieces, right in front of everyone they cared about. Their obsession with appearances would be their downfall. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. To my family, I was the same distant, quiet Lisa. I answered my mom's weekly check-in calls with non-committal monosyllables. I even liked a new family photo Jessica posted, one from which I was, of course, conspicuously absent. I played my part perfectly, giving them no reason to suspect that their carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. But behind the scenes, I was a woman possessed. My apartment became a war room. Mark was my trusted lieutenant, and my graphic design skills were my weapons. The plan was simple in its concept, but intricate in its execution. My parents' 40th wedding anniversary party was in 3 weeks. It was going to be a huge event. Jessica, the master events coordinator, was planning it. She had rented out the main ballroom at the local country club and had invited over 100 people, family, friends, and colleagues of my mother from the school district. It was the perfect stage. The centerpiece of the party was going to be a celebratory slideshow, a journey through my parents' 40 years of marriage, all curated by Jessica. I knew it would be another monument to their revisionist history, filled with picture-perfect moments and, undoubtedly, a complete lack of my presence in the last decade. This slideshow was my traj. And horse, my plan had 2 phases. Phase 1 was digital. Phase 2 was the public detonation. For Phase 1, I leveraged Mark's expertise. He helped me set up a simple, anonymous website. The domain name was something innocuous, like https://www.google.com/search q equals the Miller Family Archive.com. This website would be my evidence locker, the place where I would lay out the entire ugly truth for the world to see. I spent hours designing it, making it clean, professional, and undeniable. On the homepage, I placed 2 photos side by side. On the left, the original family portrait from Mark's wedding. On the right, Jessica's version with the potted fern. The caption read, "Appearance versus reality." The website was divided into sections. One section, titled The Slow Erase, contained a gallery of dozens of photos. Each one had a slider tool. You could drag it back and forth to see the original picture with me in it and the edited version they had posted online. I included dates, locations, and their original captions. It was a damning visual history of my methodical removal. Another section was titled The Danielle Deception. Here, I uploaded all the evidence from the catfishing scheme. The screenshots of the dating profile, the fake blogs, the website Jessica had built, and the crucial screenshot showing the ad account linked to both her and my mother. I wrote a clear, concise explanation of the scam, including Sharon's story about them trying to solicit money. I was careful not to be emotional. I presented the facts as a journalist would, letting the evidence speak for itself. Finally, Mark worked his magic. He created a QR code that linked directly to this website. It was a simple, black and white square, but it was the key to everything. The second phase of the plan was the slideshow itself. I called Jessica, my voice full of forced enthusiasm. "Hey Jess, I heard you're putting together a slideshow for the party. I know I haven't been the most involved lately, but I'd love to contribute." I found a bunch of old family photos in the attic, some really great ones of Mom and Dad from before we were born. As I expected, she was suspicious at first, but the idea of new, vintage content for her perfect slideshow was too tempting to resist. "Oh, that's sweet of you, Lisa," she said. "Just send them over." I digitized a handful of genuinely lovely old photos of my parents to gain her trust. She loved them. A few days later, I called her again. "I have a few more, and I also put together a short video clip," I lied. "The file is a bit big. Could I just come over and put it on the main computer you're using for the presentation? It'll be easier." She hesitated, but finally agreed. "Fine, but don't mess up my transitions." That evening, I went to her house with a USB drive. On it was a folder with a few more photos and one single short video file named Final Clip MP4. While she was in the other room getting me a drink, I sat down at her laptop. The slideshow presentation was already open. It was exactly as I'd imagined, a perfectly curated highlight reel of their lives. I was barely in it. I quickly found the end of the presentation. I imported my video, which was, in reality, a single static image. It was a simple, elegant black screen with white text in the middle that read, "For the rest of the story, please scan the QR code below." And beneath the text was the massive QR code linking to my website of truth. I placed it as the final slide, right after the heartwarming Happy 40th Anniversary message. I also did one more thing. I used my knowledge of the presentation software to lock the slide. It couldn't be easily deleted or edited without a password that only I knew. I closed the laptop, thanked her for the drink, and left. The bomb was planted. All I had to do now was wait for the party. The night of the anniversary party was surreal. The country club ballroom was decorated in silver and gold, filled with elegantly dressed guests, all murmuring congratulations to my parents. My mother, Karen, was in her element, gliding through the crowd with a queenly smile, accepting compliments on her perfect family and her successful career. My father looked genuinely happy, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to break. Jessica was a whirlwind of frantic energy, clipboard in hand, ensuring every detail was perfect. She gave me a tight, dismissive smile when I arrived. "Lisa, you made it. Try not to stand in the way of the catering staff." I just nodded and found a quiet table in the back with my cousin Mark. He gave me a reassuring look. "Ready?" he mouthed. I took a deep breath and gave a slight nod. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but there was no turning back now. The evening progressed as planned. There were speeches, a champagne toast, and a lavish dinner. My mother and sister soaked up the adoration, their faces glowing with self-satisfaction. They looked like the perfect family from their Edite. Photos happy, successful, and unblemished by any inconvenient truths. I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were watching a movie and I already knew the ending. Finally, the moment arrived. Jessica tapped a glass for attention. "And now," she announced, her voice brimming with pride, "I'd like to present a little trip down memory lane. 40 years of love, laughter, and family." She dimmed the lights and clicked a button on her laptop. The projector whirred to life, and the slideshow began. The first few minutes were exactly as I'd predicted. A curated collection of smiling faces and happy moments. My parents' wedding, their first home, Jessica's birth, her dance recitals, her graduation. I made a few brief appearances in the early years, a toddler in pigtails, a gap-toothed kid at Christmas. But as the timeline moved into the last decade, I vanished completely. It was the public debut of my erasure. I could feel Mark's hand clench on his chair next to me. The music swelled as the slideshow reached its climax. A montage of recent family vacations I wasn't in, holiday gatherings I was cropped out of, all culminating in a beautiful, professionally taken family portrait of my parents and Jessica. The words, "Happy 40th Anniversary, Mom and Dad," appeared on the screen. The room filled with applause. My mother dabbed a tear from her eye. Jessica took a small bow. They thought it was over. But I knew the final slide was coming. Jessica clicked the remote one last time to end the presentation. But instead of going to a black screen, my slide appeared. The ballroom fell silent. On the massive screen behind the head table, for everyone to see, was the black slide with the white text. "For the rest of the story, please scan the QR code below." And below it, the giant, unmissable QR code. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. Jessica's face went from triumphant to panicked. She frantically clicked the remote, but the slide wouldn't change. She tried to escape the presentation, but it was frozen. I saw her try to delete the slide, only to be met with the password prompt I had set. Her face turned pale. My mother stood up, her smile frozen in a rictus of confusion. "Jessica, what is that?" she hissed. But it was too late. All over the room, people were pulling out their phones. Curiosity is a powerful force. One by one, I saw the blue glow of phone screens as they scanned the code. And then the reactions began. A gasp from a table near the front. An uncle frowning at his phone, scrolling intently. An old family friend turning to her husband with a look of utter shock. I saw my mother's colleagues, the principal and teachers from her school, huddled together, their faces a mixture of disbelief and disgust. The room, which had been filled with cheerful chatter just moments before, was now buzzing with whispers. I could hear snippets of conversation. "Is that Lisa in these photos? Wait, they photoshopped her out? Oh my God, look at this Danielle thing, they were scamming people." The truth was spreading through the room like a virus, passed from phone to phone. My mother finally grabbed a phone from a guest and looked at the website. The color drained from her face. She looked up, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. The look in her eyes wasn't remorse or sadness. It was pure, unadulterated fury. She had been exposed. Jessica had abandoned her laptop and was now at my mother's side, her face streaked with tears of humiliation. The perfect image they had spent years crafting had been shattered in less than 5 minutes. My father, bless his heart, was the last to understand. He just looked around at the chaos, his face a mask of bewilderment. Then Mark walked over to him and quietly showed him his phone. I watched my father's expression change from confusion to dawning horror, and finally, to a deep, profound sadness. He looked from the phone to his wife and his oldest daughter, and then at me, and in that moment, he finally saw. He finally understood what they had been doing. The party was over. Guests started to leave, offering awkward, pitying glances at my parents. No one came to say goodbye. They just wanted to escape the toxic fallout. I stood up and walked towards the exit. As I passed my family's table, my mother stood in my way. "How could you?" she seethed, her voice a low, venomous whisper. "You ruined everything." I looked her straight in the eye, my voice calm and clear. "No, Mom," I said. "I didn't ruin anything. I just showed everyone the truth. You're the one who ruined everything when you decided your daughter was less important than a perfect picture." I walked out of the ballroom and didn't look back, leaving them in the ruins of the perfect life they had built on a foundation of lies. The aftermath was exactly as explosive as I had anticipated. The digital bomb I had detonated at the anniversary party sent shockwaves through our entire community. The website, https://www.google.com/search Q equals the Miller Family Archive.com, became the subject of intense local gossip. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out, some in shock, others offering support I never knew I had. It turned out, many people had noticed my slow disappearance from the family's public life but had been too polite to say anything. My website simply confirmed their suspicions and then exposed a rot that went deeper than anyone could have imagined. My mother faced immediate consequences at her job. The school board launched an investigation into the catfishing allegations. While it was difficult to prove criminal intent without a victim pressing charges, the moral implications were enough. The scandal was a stain on the reputation of the school district. Within a month, she was quietly forced into an early retirement. Her reign as the respected vice principal was over, replaced by a legacy of shame and deception. She and I have not spoken a single word since that night. Jessica's life imploded even more spectacularly. As a real estate agent whose business was built on trust and a friendly, family-oriented image, the scandal was a professional death sentence. Her face was on bus benches, but now everyone knew the story behind her smile. Clients dropped her. Her brokerage firm, fearing the negative publicity, terminated her contract. The Danielle persona was exposed, and while no legal charges were filed, likely because the scam was nipped in the bud before anyone lost significant money, her reputation was destroyed beyond repair. She sold her house and moved to a different state, unable to face the constant judgment and whispers in our hometown. The last I heard, she was working an entry-level office job, her days of being a local celebrity long gone. She tried to contact me once, a long, rambling email that was a bizarre mix of half-hearted apologies and accusations, blaming me for overreacting and ruining her life. I deleted it without a reply. My relationship with my father has been the most complex part of the fallout. He was heartbroken, caught between a wife and daughter he enabled and a daughter he had allowed to be erased. He called me a week after the party, his voice thick with regret. "I'm so sorry, Lisa," he said. "I never saw it. I should have seen it." We've had many long, difficult conversations since then. He is trying to understand, to atone for his passivity. Our relationship is not what it once was, and perhaps it never will be, but we are slowly, cautiously rebuilding. He is learning to see me for who I am, not as an inconvenient part of a picture he didn't want to examine too closely. For my part, I felt a profound sense of release. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my own story, my own identity. For years, they had defined me by my absence. Now, I was defining myself by my presence, my strength, and my refusal to be silenced. I had spent so long feeling small and invisible, and now I felt powerful. I had faced the people who hurt me most, and I had not only survived, but I had won. Mark and I are closer than ever. He was my rock through the whole ordeal, and our bond as cousins has deepened into a true, sibling-like friendship. Sharon, the family friend who started it all with her message, has become a surrogate aunt to me. She checks in regularly, offering wisdom and warmth. It's a powerful reminder that family isn't always about blood. It's about the people who see you, support you, and would never, ever edit you out. Professionally, my graphic design business has flourished. In a strange twist of fate, the story of my digital restoration brought me a lot of attention. I started getting clients who were drawn to my story of using design to expose truth and reclaim a narrative. I've started a side project, a workshop for young people on digital literacy and the importance of authenticity online, teaching them to be critical of the curated perfection they see on their screens. I am, for the first time in a long time, the main character in my own life. I am no longer a blurry figure in the background or a cropped-out shoulder. My life is my own canvas, and I am painting it with bright, bold colors. I still love taking pictures, but now they are for me. They document my real life, my real friends, my real happiness. They are unfiltered, imperfect, and beautiful, and in every single one I am present, accounted for, and smiling. Not because I'm posing for a camera, but because I am genuinely, finally happy. My family tried to erase me, but in the end, they only made me more visible. They set out to make me a ghost in our family's history, but instead, I became the author of its final chapter.